Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I finally finished Final Fantasy 16 about a week ago, and I've been wanting to talk about this game ever since I finished it. Now, I did a first impressions on the channel a couple months ago after it came out. I played about 20 hours of it, gave a first impressions. Now I was able to finish the game, and now I kind of want to talk about my overall impressions and review this game now that I fully completed it. How do I feel about it? Did my opinion change since the first impressions video? And well, let's just get into it. Yes, my opinions of this game changed dramatically after that first impressions video, and I'm glad that I labeled it first impressions and not review, and actually waited to finish the game before I reviewed it, because my opinion of the game changed so dramatically after the first 20 to 25 hours of the game. I thought the setup in the beginning was very, very well done. The story was really hitting all the beats. I was liking the music, I was liking the gameplay, I was liking the characters, but then something happened midway through the game, and the game just really came to a standstill, and it started to bore me so much so that I went weeks without playing it. The biggest thing with this game is that it has some of the greatest spectacular boss fights that you will ever play in any video game. You have these moments where it's just absolutely epic, and your blood is flowing and your heart's pumping and you're like, this is amazing. And then 5 minutes later, you're collecting garlic for some reason. And that's one of my biggest problems with the game. Was I got burnt out really quick because we went from really high highs to some of the lowest lows that I've ever played in any Final Fantasy game or any game in recent memory. It was just mind-boggling to me how we can have such great action and excitement and storytelling, these epic cutscenes and boss battles, and then the very next scene, we're talking to random NPCs on the map, and then we're doing like these real weird odd jobs of collecting garlic or going to talk to this person or going to, and these aren't side quests I'm talking about. These are actual main quests in the game in order to progress the story. Side quests are optional. I usually don't do side quests unless they are something to help progress my character. But other than that, I focus just on the story itself. And I have to tell you, it really got to me. Like, it was one of the worst things I've ever seen in any Final Fantasy game. And not only that, it was so bad that it made me start to question the characters that I'm actually playing with. It got to the point where I cared about Clive, and now I really do not care about Clive whatsoever. And it doesn't help that he comes across very monotone, very one note, and he's just always mumbling all the time. This character is always mumbling. Like, never once can he actually talk clearly and have something that is really insightful. And I felt like the younger version of him did, and I thought we were going to get that progression of Clive, but by the end, he's still doing the same rumble, mumble stuff that he's been doing throughout the entire game. And the problem is that a lot of these characters are very kind of monotone. I started off really liking Jill, and even she kind of like, everybody's just down and dreary. No one's exciting. No one's happy. And that really kind of like dampened the whole mood. Every Final Fantasy game I played, even if you want to throw in other Final Fantasy games in comparison and say, well, what about Cloud? He's very monotoned in one note, but he has other characters like Tifa and Aerith and Barret that brings up the energy in the room. Aerith's happy feeling self, really kind of shines through the dark and dreariness of Cloud. Same thing goes in Final Fantasy VIII when you look at someone like Zell or Renoa. They bring out the more bright tones of the game. Whereas in this game, everybody is just monotoned. Everybody is just very down, like it's the end of the world type thing. And even if that is the creative choice of the creators of Final Fantasy 16, they needed to add some other element into it. Every Final Fantasy game that I have played from the beginning of time has always had that balance of maybe a character that's doubting himself. Someone like Yuna, who has to go on this pilgrimage, and she knows that she's going to have to sacrifice her life at the end of this journey that she's going on. You have someone like Waka, who brightens up the room. Someone like Tidus, who's able to brighten up the room. You look at someone like Final Fantasy 15, and you see the darkness that goes on in there. You have other characters there to brighten up the room. Every Final Fantasy game I've ever played had that well balanced. And I think that was something that was sorely missing from Final Fantasy 16. Everybody was always down. Everybody was depressed, and it made for a very depressing experience playing through this game. There was no light-hearted moments, and it made it harder for me to connect with any of these characters. Final Fantasy 16 is heavily based on Game of Thrones. You can see the comparisons all over the place. But even in something like Game of Thrones, even Jon Snow cracks a joke every now and then. Even Jon Snow, who Clive is based off of, actually smiles and brightens up the room every now and then. He's a hard ass when he has to be, but at the same time, he has those moments of weakness where you just hear Clive just rumble and mumble under his breath the entire time. He talks as if he's in a library 24/7. And that is one of the biggest problems with this game, with the lack of excitement, the lack of energy, and having to do these god-awful quests in between these big moments. The gameplay loop is absolutely awful. You go from some of the exciting moments in the game, doing these epic icon battles, to the next thing you're just delivering packages or delivering, garlic, or doing this and doing that. And it's just like, how did we go from here 5 minutes ago to now doing this? Not only is the gameplay loop so boring at times, it actually becomes very, very repetitive, because you go into an area, you go through all these soldiers and you're fighting these monsters, and then you beat the boss, you do the icon battle, then you upgrade your equipment, do some little random quests to kill time, and it just keeps looping over and over. It's the same formula for each single chapter. Each chapter has the same formula, to where you just rinse and repeat, and once your mind notices that, it really makes it even more difficult to connect with the game and play through the game. I finished it. I'm happy I did, but this is not a Final Fantasy I'm going to put in my top 5, or maybe not even in my top 10. It has nothing to do with the gameplay mechanics. The gameplay mechanics I felt is fine. I enjoyed the gameplay mechanics. I enjoyed the level up system and the whole upgrading of the abilities. The one thing that just bothered me was the gameplay loop was very, very repetitive, and you could see where they were trying to pad the game to make this game even longer. If you would take out all that garlic running, delivery stuff, talking to this person, this game would be a much shorter game and be a better game for it. It would be a more cohesive, like 20-hour to 25-hour game, rather being 45 to 50 hours of just padding. And that's just not this game's problem. That's a lot of modern games' problem, because they feel if you're paying $70 for a game, then you need to get your money's worth. They just pad it up with all kinds of stuff. And again, that's something that like Spider-Man does, God of War does. All these games do this now, because they feel like the longer the game is, the more value you're getting for your money, rather than it actually be a quality 20 to 25-hour game. They just want to throw that padding. In the end, this game was a massive letdown. It was a very tragic ending, but I felt nothing, because I had no connection to these characters, unlike Final Fantasy games in the past. This game was a massive letdown, very disappointed, but hey, at least we got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out soon, and hopefully that gets Final Fantasy back on the right track. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please be sure to smash that like and subscribe button, and until next time, as always, I am Robert Storms, and thank you for watching.